After the match last night, once again, everyone was discussing VAR after Semenyo's goal was ruled out for offside after a 5-minute check at St James's Park. And even after the 5-minute check on the final decision by the referee, it was still deemed a controversial decision. People split as to whether it was offside or not. And once again, VAR is the main talking point. And the worst thing here is that was a semi-final of a domestic cup competition. And I'm not trying to say that that has more significance on, say, match day 3 in the Premier League. I'm not saying the game should be treated differently. What I'm saying is it's a semi-final. We should be discussing the match. We should be discussing how Semenyo started brilliantly at Man City, about how they're practically in the Carabao Cup final, about how Newcastle United have got beat, Eddie Howe perhaps under a little bit of pressure. But we're not. We're discussing VAR again. And the worst thing about it for me is we're guaranteed to discuss it again this season. Will it be tonight after the other Carabao Cup semi-final? Will it be at the weekend after another Premier League game? Will it take the FA Cup final? We will be discussing VAR again and again and again. And it's not just VAR itself. It's the decisions VAR are making. They're still controversial. In recent weeks, we've had former players. Last night, we've had Alan Shearer calling out the decision, which went against Newcastle United, saying, I don't understand why that's being ruled out. We've got managers in the Premier League today saying, I don't know what the rules are. I don't know why that's been given. That's not been given. We've got professional footballers in the game today saying, I don't know what's going on. Semenyo looked really confused last night. The people that are involved in football are unsure what the laws of football are at the minute. And you might say, well, that's their fault. But some of the laws of football are open to interpretation. And that was what we seen last night. The referee got sent to the monitor because it was a subjective offside. But you want, as a fan, as a player, as a manager, you want to feel that offside is offside. It's black or white. There's no grey. There's no subjectiveness here. And I get what it is, because he had to determine whether Haaland was interfering in play or not, and he's decided he was. But there's a few problems with VAR. And I'm going to have a calm discussion about it today. But for those who have watched my videos for weeks, months, years, you will know I'm not a fan of it. I do not like it, and I wish for it to be removed. And the reason I wish for it to be removed is because we've had it for long enough to try and amend it, to try and make it better, to try and improve it. And we failed to do that. I say they've failed to do that. And I think we've got to the point now where I struggle to see them improving it. I struggle to see it becoming this seamless part of the game where it's not really going to interfere on the matchday experience. It's not going to interfere on the players involved in the pitch. It's doing the complete opposite. A 5-minute delay when, again, this shouldn't be part of it, but it kind of is last night, which is the weather conditions are not great. The last thing you want as a footballer or an athlete is to be stood around for 5 minutes just waiting for the play to restart. It's arguably a dangerous thing to do. It's not fit for purpose. And I've got two big issues with VAR. Number one, they forgot why it was implemented. When they brought it in 8 years ago now, they said human errors happen. VAR is here to help reduce the amount of human errors, to correct mistakes made by an official during a game of play. But they stressed that it was going to be minimal interference. It was going to be clear and obvious mistakes only in order to reduce the impact, so that they did a trial. I remember they did a trial in the FA Cup games previously, and they used many FA Cup games in order to have a little look at it and then to take that trial forward. And the average stop time of that was about 80 seconds, which doesn't feel significant. But we've gone a million miles from that now. We don't take 80 seconds per decision. We're taking minutes per 5 minutes, that one last night. We've had some VAR decisions take over 5 minutes. At what point do you say it's no longer clear and obvious? Now, an offside is a difficult one because it clear and obvious shouldn't really come into it. He's either offside or he's not offside, right? It should be definitive. And I think last night's one was a little bit trickier because of Nick Pope. Usually the goalkeeper's there. Usually when you're looking at VAR, you're looking at that attacker and that defender, and it's, you know, who you're trying to judge. You've got a clear and obvious attacker and defender, and it's easier. But when the goalkeeper is not the furthest player back, it makes it a little bit trickier. And the three of them, Pope, Chowes, and Haaland, were all sort of in line with each other. So I do get it's trickier. But 5 minutes, come on, you can't be doing that. But it raises the question. If we go back to Craven Cottage a few weeks ago when Liverpool scored against Fulham, and it's come out since that actually it was offside, but the reason was, oh yeah, there's a 5 centimetre tolerance. Well, surely last night that came within a 5 centimetre tolerance. It must have done. Well, where's that disappeared to? The fact is, VAR was brought in to reduce or remove human error. It was to reduce and or remove any sort of controversy, to make it a level playing field so that everyone, goals that were meant to be goals stood, goals that weren't meant to be goals were removed. It was meant to be no errors. It's not working. We've still got incorrect decisions. We've still got controversy. The difference is we're no longer saying, oh, that linesman missed it. We're saying VAR missed it. We've just changed whose fault it is. It's gone from the guy on the pitch, whether it's the referee in the middle or the linesman on the touchline, to the guy in Stockley Park looking at a monitor. There's people watching replay upon replay and still getting it wrong. And this brings me to point 2. I think the technology of VAR is incredible. I think it's fantastic. The people running it are terrible. It's not the technology that's not fit for purpose. On a couple of occasions, it hasn't worked. When Arsenal scored, I can't recall the game. I remember Saka being well out right, and they thought he might be offside. And VAR, the camera angle couldn't pick Saka up. So it was like, we're going to have to give the goal because VAR can't tell. So there's been few instances where the technology hasn't worked, right? But they are few and far between. And I think when that happens, as a human, you tend to go, right, okay, it's a bit of a big deal because someone's benefited from that, but it happens. It's not the end of the world. But what feels like the end of the world is when you're watching a human, watching a monitor, still making the wrong decision after taking minutes, replay upon replay upon replay, and they're still coming to the wrong decision. And I think the laws of the game do have grey areas. If I go back, I'm being biased here, if I go back to West Ham United against Nottingham Forest, Somerville was going forward, Milankovic touched the ball, and it went to another West Ham player, Tate, and West Ham ended up scoring. And it got ruled out for offside. But then there was a debate, because the laws of the game says if a defender deliberately plays the ball, then it doesn't count. It should be onside. But then the debate was, is it a deliberate playing of the ball? Because obviously the referee deemed it to be a block rather than a tackle. The point is, we were still, even with VAR, we're still debating things. And the BBC published an article yesterday, the day before, which has the VAR incidents so far, and it's got missed incidents too. So there's a list of players that were on a yellow card, should have got a yellow card, players that should have got sent off, VAR didn't get involved. But my point is, it's a lengthy article, and I've got a table here. And I want to focus on the ones on the left-hand side, net decisions. So if you take all the VAR decisions for you and against you, what's your outcome? So my team, West Ham's on 0, right? So we've, let's just say 3 for us and 3 against us. So we've got net 0. Confirmation bias on my part, which is Fulham on -4, because for those that have been here since the start of the season, I felt like they got mugged off big time by the officials at the start of the season. But you have a look at the chart, you've got Chelsea and Man U. And this isn't even like I just want to be clear, this isn't it's Chelsea, Man U, it's the big six that's benefiting. This isn't take a shot at them. I think VAR is crap for every team. And I know there's jokes and there's memes, which is checking club badge and stuff like that. And it feels like that sometimes. But I think that's the hangover from pre-VAR. Because when back in the 2000s and 2010s, I was alive in the 90s. I was at primary school. I was in nappies and then I was in primary school, right? But when I've understood football, has felt like decisions were weighted towards perhaps Manchester United, so on and so forth. So I think there's a hangover. There's a hangover effect of that, which is carried into this period of VAR, which is we still feel like there's big club bias. But then when you look at that, you've got Chelsea, Man U, Arsenal, Man City all benefiting. So it would suggest it, but then it goes against it when you go down the bottom. Liverpool are actually on -2. But my point here, it's not to have a dig at them. just look at VAR, look at the benefits. There's hardly any. There's only 4 teams with more than one net benefit to VAR. The question is it worth it? And I don't think it is. VAR should mean we have no errors. It should. In theory, that is the best case scenario. The best case scenario possible using VAR correctly with the right people would mean that we get every decision right. Every offside call is right. Every penalty decision is right. Every red card offence is correct. And if it was, you could stomach the delays, probably. But we are getting delays, and off the back of the delays, we're getting incorrect decision. I enjoy watching EFL. It's usually mainly Championship. I'm not going to pretend to watch League 1 and League 2 loads. I'll watch the occasional game, maybe one game a month from those leagues. I enjoy a bit of the Championship. I watch a bit of the Championship. And a big part of that appeal is no VAR. The FA Cup at the weekend, it was just more enjoyable. It was far more enjoyable with no VAR. Every time a goal went in, when Wrexham scored against Nottingham Forest, I didn't see the Macclesfield Palace game. Frustratingly, I missed that one. But when Wrexham scored against Nottingham Forest, you went, no, you could go, well, hey, we've got an upset in the cards here. When your team scored, if they did, you could celebrate. Now, if you support one of the teams that aren't in the Premier League, you're used to it anyway. But for us that support Premier League teams, when your team scored, I can't be the only one that found it just better because you could celebrate it. It wasn't getting ruled out. And you get to this point where if it does get ruled out, you might grumble, oh, Lionel got that wrong. But you can, I think, as humans, and this is a normal, natural thing, I think we are far, far, far more willing to accept human error, as long as it feels like human error, not human bias. We're far more willing to accept human error than we are someone watching a computer screen and still making the same mistake. If the game was cleaned up and there was no more errors, it's justified. But it ain't. We've still got the controversy. We've still got a list of decisions coming out halfway through the season of things that the referees have got wrong with the aid of the computer. It is not working. It's not fit for purpose. And there's a few things ruining football at the minute. Premier League feels a bit more bland, a bit more boring. And I strongly believe VAR is the biggest culprit to this. There's other things as well in terms of stadia and stuff like that. There's lots of different factors, but I think the biggest one is VAR. But I think there's a domino effect. If you suggest, less people go to the football now, why? VAR is having an impact on that. I strongly believe that. I think you can't scrap it this season. I think when you start a competition, you've got to play the whole competition with the same rules. I know the FA Cup introduces VAR later on, the Carabao Cup done, but it makes sense due to League 2 clubs. You can't expect League 2 clubs to then have technology ready for VAR. But if they get to the latter rounds, sure. But you can't have it all throughout the competition because of the cost, right? It makes sense. I think you'd be better off just having no VAR at all. Maybe in the final only. But up until then, none of it. But you're going to have to see out the rest of the Premier League season with it. But I strongly hope that there's conversations and considerations to getting rid of it. The fact is, I could be wrong. I could be. I've checked before the game, and Henry Winter put it up last night as well. Last time the Premier League clubs voted, which was to keep it in the game, only one club voted against it. And I find that surprising because that means only one club feels like it's not good for football, it's ruining football, or they're on the end of bad decisions. And I can make a case for quite a few Premier League clubs as to why they should be voting against it. And I know it's not perfect. And when it got introduced, I never expected it to be perfect immediately. I knew there was going to be teething problems. But what I did expect was for those to get fixed. And they come out with their 6-point plan. They did it ahead of this season, a 6-point plan as to how they were going to improve VAR. One of it was to improve communication in the stadium. Great, that's a start. But actually, all you're doing is saying checking for penalty. Well, we already knew you were checking for a penalty most of the time, and then you get the referee goes on the microphone and says, I'm giving a pen. Well, we can see you're giving a pen. So actually, while the communication has improved, it's not really altered much in the grand scheme of things, but the delays are unacceptable. If they were to continue with VAR, I think the biggest thing they can bring in is to go back to what they said when they first introduced it. They said it wouldn't impact the speed of the Premier League. They said the pace of the Premier League is something the league's known for. We need to keep that. You ain't got it anymore. It's gone. The pace of the Premier League is something that used to be its USP. It's gone now. The Premier League ain't got a USP. If anything, it's the money. The Premier League's USP is the wages we can give to the players. Let's get back to it's the fastest league in European football. It may be factually still that. I don't know. But it doesn't feel like that anymore, and it's because of VAR. So let's go back to that. And also what they said was clear and obvious. Let's go back to that and let's stick to that. There needs to be a time limit or a replay limit. I've seen referees go to, well, we've all seen it. The referee goes to the monitor. It feels like a 50-50 call. He's not giving a pen. He goes to the monitor. He's there. He's watching 15 replays. And then he goes, pen. Well, it's because he's convinced himself. Because his mate in Stockley Park is saying it's a pen. He's looking at it going, I'm not sure. Maybe it is. Okay, I can see the con. Okay, yeah. Oh, look at it in slow motion. Oh, that looks bad. Oh, yeah, pen. He has to be convinced he's made a mistake. And if that has to happen, it's not clear and obvious. So let's limit the replays. 2 replays, 3 replays at the most. If after 3 replays you're not sure you should change your mind, it's not clear and obvious. Stick with the original decision. And the other thing I think is important here is that the referees and the VAR team are 2 separate groups of people. Because at this point, what we've got is the referee being told by his colleague, especially if it's someone like Anthony Taylor or Michael Oliver, who are deemed the best referees in the Premier League because they go off to UEFA competitions. If they're in VAR, telling the other referee you've made a mistake, they've almost got to listen. It's basically it's not their boss. It's like almost like their supervisor saying you've made a mistake. You're going to be more inclined to listen. Previous referees have spoken about how they felt like they had to give decisions because of they were being told to. Have your group of referees, have them, and have a completely separate, independent group of people in the VAR room. Now, the problem with that is they've possibly never refereed a game, so they know the laws of the game. But I do think there's an element of you need to have refed a game of football to understand a game of football. How they would set it up, I don't know. But I think one of the biggest issues, I think there's 2. The delays and the people in charge of it. And I think if we can sort both, maybe it can be salvaged. But right now, the way that VAR is used, the way that it's implemented, it's killing the game. For some people, it's killed the game. It needs to be drastically improved, and if it can't be, it needs to be removed. I have no faith in it being drastically improved. Therefore, and I've had this feeling for 2-3 seasons now, at least, because, like I said, I tried to give it a few seasons. I knew it wasn't going to be perfect. And when you see, was it the World Cup or the Euros? I'm going to misremember here slightly, possibly. It was a major international tournament anyway. It might have been the World Cup in Qatar. When VAR was fantastic. It was brilliant. It was quick. It was just 5 seconds later, yes or no. Get on with it. The interruptions was minimal. It was brilliant. It was slick. It was faster. Then I remember one game in particular where VAR took ages and it was the English referees in charge of it. And then the following game, like a few games later, the next big delay was us again. It was just a different one. I don't know if it was Oliver and Taylor or Oliver and... I don't think it wasn't as far back as Clattenburg. Who was the one before Taylor? No, I can't remember now. I can picture him in my head, but I can't. The names that come into the tip of my tongue. But you're watching. Oh, this is good. If we can be like that, that'd be brilliant. We can't be. We interfere too much. We are not as slick as them. Hopefully, someone, when I've discussed that international tournament, triggered something for one of you. You can back me up in the comments. But that's what I wanted to discuss today. That's what I wanted to get off my chest. I didn't want to make it ranty. Hopefully, it's not come across as ranty. VAR, great idea, fantastic technology, horribly executed. And the worst thing, it's not removed controversy and it's not removed incorrect decisions. All it's done is change where the incorrect decisions are made, and it's changed the conversation around the controversial decisions. Not good enough. Thank you very much for joining me. If you're new to Tartan Geo, I'd appreciate if you could subscribe. I'm getting close to 7,000 subscribers, and it'd be nice to hit it. It would give me a morale boost. Please do drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed it. It helps out the channel, especially small content creators like myself on here. The more help I get, the better. It encourages YouTube to share the video with people who haven't subscribed to the channel. So that would be much appreciated as well. Let me know your thoughts as well. Don't be shy. Get involved in the comments below. What do you think about VAR? And I will catch up with you later in the week with my Premier League preview and prediction show where someone is getting a prize. Catch you in a bit.